So in the last video, we reviewed some of the very basic features of the fluent-data dataset class. We learned how to map, we learned how to filter, output to the console, output to an array using the get method. In this video, we're going to go into the group method, which on its own could be interesting for you, and in tandem with the other methods can become quite powerful. Let's create a new terminal here, just to start with some fresh output. And let's output where we left it off last time. Pretty much we just filtered for higher ratings and renamed the books to the books renamed field. Imagine we wanted to group by customer. Pass it in as a lambda to the group. There we go. 2 sub data sets, each representing a different customer inside of a parent data set housing them both. Maybe the requirement is not to just group by customer, but also to group by books. That could mean a couple of things, but let's imagine that they're the same level of groups. There we go. We have a few extra groupings in our set, and that's not surprising because we have the customer and the books as part defining our groups now. I see a lot of groups though. I don't want to work with that many, so let's turn this into a Boolean. Should cut it not exactly in half, but enough in half. There we go. Now the B property outputs a Boolean, only 4 groups this time. Maybe you don't need all that information inside your key and you want to keep your syntax a little shorter. You don't have to make it an object. You can make it an array. Same groups, just the key is now the array instead of the object. Maybe that's not what's meant by double grouping. You don't want them at the same level. There's a different thing. There's a different way to group that you might be interested in. Notice in this new output, we've only got 4 groups as before, but they're nested. So the top level is A versus B. And then within those levels, you've got your Boolean true or false based on the books renamed column being more or less than 3. Mapping and filtering, followed by a group. Only the group is impressive. Now let's watch them interact. Let's take these groupings and put them before the mapping and filtering. And since it's before, we renamed here in map. And so if we move them before, we got to just refer to books because it's not been renamed yet. But outside of that, you don't have to change your syntax. You would think you would. You would think that the filter, the P variable is no longer referring to a row, it's referring to a grouping. If you were to work in JavaScript with a normal array, that would be true. In other libraries, such as C#, if you come from that background and you're working with LINQ, you would have to change your syntax. But with fluent-data, the filter method, the map method, and most other methods defined on the dataset already know to work with the base level. If you actually need to work with the grouping, there's ways to do that. But most uses, you'll be working with the base level. Let's run that. There you go. Should be the same output. But regardless, it knows how to work with it. And you can see that demonstrated here. So the last thing probably worth mentioning is, let's say you've done some work with your multiple nestings and now you want to roll it back. You want to get rid of some of the groupings. Just use ungroup. Ungroup will take the lowest and undo that. So now we're back to just BNA. And if necessary, ungroup one more time. And we're back to the main data set after we've done our work. So that's how a group works. That's how it works in tandem with some of the other methods, including methods that we'll be defining later on. And I hope you find it powerful. I should mention, if I haven't already, I'll leave it alone.